You have more than 900 portfolio companies at General Catalyst. I have a feeling you have a good bird's eye perspective of what's working and what's not right now. In the world of consumer AI adoption, what's working?
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for having me. It's good to see you. I think as the AI models have become much more sophisticated, the consumer innovation is starting to take hold. I think we'll see another renaissance. You see that with the mobile and social, 15 years ago, but there hasn't been many interesting consumer companies except for, let's say, OpenAI itself, which is really predominantly a consumer app with ChatGPT, or something like Polymarket, which we're investors in. But I think beyond that, a lot of it has been on enterprise adoption, and AI had the infrastructure had to get good enough. But now, what I'm seeing with founders is starting to see interesting use cases of, hey, how does this really make the consumer lives better day to day? Well, think about experiences around how do you rethink travel. All the consumer brands that got built over the last 15 years, what is the AI native version of that? What is that experience going to look like? So there's a lot of thinking going on around that.
Are the valuations in lockstep with the thinking? Are they farther along than the thinking?
Well, valuations are a tricky topic, and I feel like they always prove out to be right or wrong in hindsight. But if you break down the kinds of companies that get funded today, there's a ton of dollars going into a handful of big research projects. Yeah. The valuation, your guess is as good as mine. It really is about, ownership that's enough to incentivize the teams, because they're research projects. You don't know when they're going to become businesses or if they're going to become businesses. And then there's companies where they're real use cases, applied AI use cases. The valuations sound extraordinary at the moment, but the progress happens so fast in some of these companies that they grow into it fast as well. So I think it's a nuanced dynamic, and what's the thing that is confusing for me a lot of times when I look at these companies that are growing is not about are we pricing it right in the context of their revenue or their revenue growth, but much more about are they going to be around? Are the models going to be smart enough to do a lot of what some of these companies are doing and just do it themselves? Or are there applied AI, which applied AI companies will be durable on top of the LLM innovation that's going on?
Anthropic, you're in.
Yes.
That's durable.
Yes. And look, first of all, Anthropic is I have a lot of respect for Dario, what he's accomplished, and the team there. It's durable. They've built a great set of models. They've been very capital efficient. And the thing that's interesting is they also have an amazing set of use cases on top that are taking hold. So it's not just the model company, it's also applied AI, right? Claude. It's really redefining the engineering department. And just think about the size of that market, the amount you spend on tools and engineers to be able to build products. And, the amount of progress is like Silicon Valley companies now code self-writes for most of what they do. I think it's a real transformation what cloud's really enabled.
I know you're very passionate about the democratization of access to some of these companies. Look, Anthropic might go public. Is that should it be going public sooner? Should the next round be one that comes to the masses rather than perhaps going to let another venture or another crossover round where they remain private?
Yeah, look, I think the company has to decide that. But do they have the size and scale to go public in the next 12 to 18 months? I think they certainly can. I think there's going to be a variety of factors they'll have to weigh in to decide when they think it makes sense to be public, when they're predictable enough, because so much is changing in the market itself and the dynamics. It's actually hard to predict growth. When we invested in Anthropic, we modeled a certain amount of growth. The company grew 3 times faster than that. So, we look good in hindsight, but we thought we were just doing a reasonable and in my opinion, reasonably expensive pricing for that round. It ended up being, we look great in hindsight. So it's hard to predict, how these companies are going to scale for a little bit longer.
Well, let's talk about prediction, because you are in Polymarket.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about Polymarket because people are putting on potential bets and views and predictions on things that, in some ways, the regulation just isn't there to get their hands around. We think about how Polymarket is very much in the news about a particular bet. We might call it a prediction on Venezuela. How do you think regulation will catch up to that? Do you want it to? Would that stifle growth of Polymarket?
Yeah, it's very interesting. So we invested in Polymarket several years ago. I did the Series A there. And the thing I resonated with what Shane was doing was that in the world of online, especially with growing focus on AI, you would see that there's a need for understanding truth better and better. And prediction markets, in some ways, was to statistically understand what's going on in the world. Where does the truth really lie? Where does the collective understanding really lie? So, and that's really, it's been interesting to watch how that dynamic has really sort of taken hold. In this Polymarket, there's Call Sheet, there's sort of a few companies that have gone down in that path and tried to prove that model out. Does this need to be regulated? It is a little bit of the wild, wild west. I do think the company is taking regulation seriously in the way they approach it. But what that regulatory regime should be in the context of how information gets transferred, it's very dynamic right now.
What's dynamic is the administration. They very much support AI, it feels like. Where else should they be supporting? We just got 1 minute left.
Yeah. Venture capital bet on AI. That's really what the administration has done in the last year. I mean, most of the GDP growth comes from investing in AI. They had to do that. I think investing in energy, investing in making sure the workforce transformation and the application of AI and the diffusion of AI happens in a thoughtful way is a lot of where I think the administration does need to focus on this next phase.